Most people walk through life blind. Not because their eyes are closed, but because their minds are. They see only what they want to see, the comfortable, the familiar, the easy. But a few people, a very rare few, notice the hidden patterns, the intentions behind the smiles, the traps behind the opportunities. And the moment you begin to see what others cannot, you stop living in their world and start becoming a threat to it. Machiavelli understood this truth. Perception is power. But power always has a price. The more you see, the more others fear you. The more you understand, the more they will try to silence you. Today, I will show you why seeing the truth is dangerous and why it is also your greatest weapon. When you possess a level of perception that others lack, you instantly become a disturbance to their comfort and their ignorance. Most people do not seek truth. They seek reassurance. They prefer illusions that make them feel safe, narratives that protect their ego, and beliefs that keep their world simple. When you see beyond these illusions, you unintentionally threaten the stability of their mental world. Machiavelli understood this deeply. People are not afraid of monsters or enemies as much as they fear truth. The truth forces them to confront their own flaws, their own weakness, and their own misjudgments. And when you become the one who sees that truth clearly, you disrupt the foundation on which their confidence rests. The masses operate with a limited lens, filtered by emotion, habit, and inherited thinking. They are attached to the familiar, even if it is wrong. When your vision cuts through appearance and you recognize the motives behind people's actions, the hidden agendas in politics, the patterns in relationships, or the manipulation behind systems, you no longer fit within the psychological boundaries they built for themselves. They do not understand how you can see so sharply. They may say you overthink, you judge too much, or you imagine things. But the reality is the opposite. They simply cannot see enough. And because people naturally fear what they cannot understand, they label your clarity as danger. They distrust the one who sees too much. In Machiavelli's world, the visionary was not celebrated, he was feared. Clarity makes people uneasy. If you see through lies, you can expose them. If you recognize manipulation, you can break it. If you understand power, you can challenge it. This makes you unpredictable to those who rely on deception or ignorance to maintain their position. They know they cannot fool you, and nothing terrifies the manipulator more than someone who is immune to their methods. Thus, your ability to see what others cannot becomes a silent threat, even if you say nothing. Your very perception becomes a kind of power, and power always attracts hostility. What makes this more dangerous is that people do not always attack you directly. Sometimes they distance themselves. Sometimes they gossip. Sometimes they say you are too serious, too analytical, or too different. These are not insults. They are signs of insecurity. People feel safe around those who think like them, but when your mind works on a deeper level, your presence alone challenges their assumptions. This creates a natural divide. You stand on one side, seeing clearly. They stand on the other, protecting the illusions that keep them comfortable. And they will defend those illusions more fiercely than they defend the truth. The danger also lies in expectations. When you see what others cannot, they expect you to explain it, justify it, or soften it so they can digest it. But the more you try to show them the truth, the more resistance you meet. People do not like the person who wakes them from their dream. The one who sees clearly eventually realizes that others are not ready for that clarity. Machiavelli would say that wisdom must be handled with discretion, because not all truths benefit the public, and not all eyes are prepared for sharp light. Yet despite the opposition, this clarity is a form of liberation. You navigate life with awareness instead of blindness. You recognize traps before stepping into them, identify selfish intentions behind kindness, and understand patterns that protect you from repeating mistakes. But this freedom comes with isolation. To see what others cannot is to walk a path they cannot follow, a path where your greatest strength also becomes the reason others misunderstand you. When you begin to see the world with sharper eyes, people will not applaud you for it. They will resist you. They will question you. They will even turn against you before they ever try to understand what you see. This is the reality Machiavelli understood. Those who perceive more are not welcomed, they are opposed. People fear perspective because perspective forces them to confront uncomfortable truths. Most people do not want their beliefs challenged, their illusions shattered, or their limitations exposed. So the moment you speak a truth that contradicts their comfortable worldview, you become the enemy of their ignorance. People react defensively when they encounter someone who sees further than they do. Not because the observer is wrong, but because the observer threatens the fabricated reality they've built around themselves. They do not want someone who notices inconsistencies, who detects motives, who identifies the lies beneath the surface. The visionary becomes a danger simply for existing. Others sense that you can notice things they overlook. They feel vulnerable around you, even if you never say a word. There is a silent tension that forms because your insight exposes their blindness, and no one likes to be reminded that they are blind. This is why, throughout history, those who carried deeper understanding were often criticized, isolated, or accused before being acknowledged. People attack what they do not comprehend. Instead of admitting they cannot see what you see, they claim you are mistaken, you are paranoid. You are unrealistic, you are imagining things. This is a psychological defense mechanism. If they dismiss the height of your perception, they can protect the comfort of their limited perspective. Machiavelli witnessed this pattern in politics, leadership, and everyday life. The sharp mind is the first to be doubted and the last to be accepted. The one who sees ahead naturally appears threatening to those stuck in the present. When you understand a person's real intentions, they feel exposed. When you read a situation more deeply, others feel judged. When you predict consequences they never consider, they feel inferior. And inferior minds do not like feeling inferior. Instead of learning from you, many will challenge you. They will try to weaken your confidence. They will accuse you of thinking too much, of being overly cautious, of being arrogant. But their reaction is rooted in fear, not logic. Your insight forces them to face truths about themselves they would rather avoid. There is also a political dimension to this. In any group, family, workplace, society, those who see clearly cannot be controlled easily. They don't fall for manipulation. They don't follow blindly. They question what others accept. This alone makes them a threat. People in positions of influence prefer followers who do not question their decisions. When you ask the questions others avoid, you disrupt the order they depend on. They resist you not because you are wrong, but because you are dangerous to the comfort of their authority. Those who see more must also accept a hard truth. Clarity isolates before it empowers. When you speak a truth others are not ready to hear, they will reject you long before they recognize your accuracy. They will mock your warnings, dismiss your insights, and label you dramatic, until reality proves you right. And even then, many will never admit it. Machiavelli knew that the visionary is rarely understood in the moment. People prefer the familiar lie over the unfamiliar truth. They attack the messenger long before they examine the message. Yet this resistance is also a sign of power. If your perception were ordinary, no one would feel threatened. They oppose you because you see too deeply. They resist you because your mind cuts through the illusions they rely on. The very opposition you face is proof of the difference you carry. When you develop the ability to see things clearly, people's intentions, hidden motivations, the quiet patterns behind their behavior, you don't just gain insight. You shine a light on the weaknesses that most people try to hide. And nothing provokes hostility faster than making someone confront a side of themselves they would rather keep in the dark. Machiavelli understood that weakness is not just a flaw. It is something people fiercely protect. When your clarity reveals it, you unintentionally create enemies. Not because you attack them, but because they feel exposed in your presence. Most people mask their insecurities behind confidence, their envy behind friendliness, their dishonesty behind charm. These masks work perfectly on the average person, but not on someone whose perception is sharp. When you notice the cracks in the facade, you become a silent threat. Even if you never speak a word about it, they sense that you see more than they want you to. Your eyes read their behavior too quickly. Your mind interprets their motives too accurately. This makes them uneasy, because they depend on others not noticing the flaws they quietly fight to hide. Weak men especially cannot tolerate someone who sees their limitations. A person with clarity becomes a mirror they do not want to look into. Your insight reflects their insecurity back at them. They cannot ignore the fact that you see through their excuses, their manipulations, their lies, and their lack of discipline. So they attack you not with weapons, but with dismissal, gossip, ridicule, or distance. They will say you judge too much, or analyze too deeply. But what they truly mean is, you see the parts of me I am afraid to show. This fear makes them unpredictable. Weak people often react aggressively when their weakness is revealed. They may try to undermine you, challenge you, or discredit you. They may feel an instinctive need to restore the illusion of superiority by dragging you down. This is why Machiavelli warned that clarity is both power and danger. When you see through falsehood, you disrupt the ego protection mechanisms that keep most people emotionally stable. Your clarity becomes a weapon, not because you intend to use it, but because others fear it might be used. There is another layer to this danger. When you can detect people's real intentions, you break the social games they rely on. Some people manipulate to feel strong. Some hide their jealousy behind fake praise. Some pretend to be allies while secretly competing. When you read these dynamics instantly, you don't play along, and this threatens those who benefit from the game. They know they cannot deceive you, and deception is the currency of weak individuals who lack genuine strength. If someone's power comes from illusion, then your ability to see truth destroys their power completely. Your clarity also sets a standard they cannot meet. When you operate with self-awareness and discipline, it highlights their lack of control, their emotional impulsiveness, their poor judgment. Instead of improving themselves, many choose the easier path, resenting you. Humans rarely hate what is truly harmful to them. They hate what reminds them of who they are not. And your clarity becomes that reminder. You do not have to say anything for them to feel threatened. Your presence carries a level of understanding that feels like judgment, even if you offer none. This is why Machiavelli believed wisdom should not always be spoken openly. Not because truth is dangerous itself, but because people's reaction to truth is unpredictable. When you reveal too much about what you see, you risk provoking the insecurity of those who depend on ignorance to feel strong. But when you carry your clarity quietly, it becomes a shield rather than a target. Either way, the moment you begin to see more deeply than others, you enter a world where your perception both protects you and isolates you. Weak people instinctively recoil from those who understand them too well, because understanding strips them of the illusions that keep their ego alive. When your perception rises above the ordinary, life begins to change in subtle but undeniable ways. You start understanding people faster, recognizing patterns earlier, and predicting outcomes others don't even consider. This clarity feels like a gift at first, but with time you learn that it separates you from people more than it connects you with them. Machiavelli understood that heightened awareness creates distance, not by choice, but by nature. The more deeply you see, the fewer people can relate to your mind. This is the quiet cost of mastery. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes, and the fewer companions can breathe at that altitude. Most people live on the surface. Their thoughts stay at the level of comfort, habit, and assumption. They don't question motives. They don't study behavior, and they don't examine consequences until they are forced to. When you operate from a deeper level, your way of thinking already feels unfamiliar to them. You sense dangers they ignore, you catch opportunities they overlook. You interpret silence, body language, tone, intention, things they barely notice. This creates a natural gap. You are navigating reality with a lens they do not have. And that distance begins to shape your relationships, your conversations, your expectations. You start to feel the loneliness of clarity. You see the flaws in advice that others passionately swear by. You recognize the traps and the paths everyone blindly follows. You understand why certain behaviors lead to failure, heartbreak, or disappointment long before they do. But when you try to explain it, people resist. They think you're being negative, overthinking, or too serious. They cannot see what you see, so they cannot understand why you act the way you do. And because they cannot understand you, they cannot walk with you. This is how insight becomes isolation, not through your intention, but through their limitation. People who think simply feel more comfortable with others who think simply. When your mind is sharper, quieter, more observant, they cannot predict you. They cannot place you inside the familiar categories they use to understand the world. You appear mysterious, even distant, not because you choose to be, but because your mind does not move in the same direction theirs does. They discuss trivial matters while you contemplate cause and consequence. They worry about impressions while you study outcomes. They chase emotions while you examine patterns. The connection becomes difficult, sometimes impossible. This distance also comes from something deeper. When you see more, you stop needing the validation that others rely on. People often bond through shared weaknesses, shared confusion, shared illusions. When you outgrow those illusions, you naturally drift away from the groups that once felt comfortable. You begin valuing solitude because solitude is where clarity thrives. You prefer a small circle of minds that challenge you rather than a crowd that drains you. Machiavelli believed that great thinkers often walk alone not because they are antisocial, but because they refuse to dim their vision to be accepted. With greater perception comes greater responsibility. You cannot pretend not to see. You cannot unlearn the truths you've discovered. You cannot go back to viewing the world through the blurry lens others are satisfied with. This commitment to clarity forces you to make choices others don't understand. You avoid certain people because you see the harm they'll bring. You leave situations that others cling to because you foresee the inevitable ending. You create boundaries not out of fear, but out of foresight. This maturity isolates you from those who still live reactively. Yet, despite the loneliness, this isolation is not a punishment, it is a path. You grow stronger in it. You sharpen your mind, build independence, and learn to trust your instincts. You become someone who does not need the crowd to validate truth. You become someone who can walk forward even when others doubt you. In the end, the solitude that comes with higher perception is not emptiness, it is elevation. Only a few people can join you there, and that is precisely what makes the journey powerful. When you possess sharp perception, the kind that sees motives, patterns, and hidden truths, it becomes tempting to reveal everything you notice. You want to warn people, expose deception, and show them the truth they cannot see. But Machiavelli understood that revealing too much is one of the greatest dangers a perceptive mind can face. Truth is powerful, but power in the wrong hands or spoken at the wrong time can turn against you. Not everyone is ready for what you see, not everyone deserves to hear it, and not everyone will react with gratitude when you expose realities they are not prepared to confront. Most people do not want the truth. They want comfort. When you reveal their hidden intentions, their weaknesses, or the flaws in their thinking, they do not thank you, they feel attacked. They see your clarity as arrogance. They see your insight as a challenge to their intelligence. They feel cornered, exposed, embarrassed. This emotional reaction can quickly turn into resentment. Instead of appreciating your perception, they treat you as the problem. Machiavelli knew that people often punish the messenger of truth because the truth makes them uncomfortable. Speaking too openly becomes a liability when people value illusion more than honesty. Revealing your vision also removes the strategic advantage that comes from being the only one who sees clearly. If you expose everything you understand, you lose the power of unpredictability. Others learn how you think, how you analyze, and how you see the world. They can anticipate your moves, adjust their behavior, or even manipulate your openness. Silence protects your insight. What you keep in your mind becomes a shield. What you speak aloud becomes a weapon others can grab and use against you. Machiavelli believed that a wise person shares only what is necessary, never everything. Knowledge loses its value when it is given away carelessly. There is another danger. Some people will steal your insights and present them as their own. They will pretend they understood it all along. They will use your clarity to elevate themselves while leaving you invisible. This happens because many people crave authority but lack the depth to earn it. When you reveal too much, you give them the tools they could never build themselves. You strengthen those who would never strengthen you in return. Machiavelli would say that generosity with knowledge can weaken the giver if the receiver is unworthy. Your openness can also draw unwanted attention from those who feel threatened by intelligence they cannot control. If someone relies on manipulation, lies, or performance to maintain influence, your ability to see through them becomes dangerous. Revealing that you see their true nature provokes them. They may attack your reputation, spread rumors, or undermine you quietly. They want to eliminate the person who can expose their facade. For this reason, strategic silence becomes essential. You observe, you understand, but you reveal only what protects you, not what satisfies your desire to be right. Sometimes the danger lies not in others, but in the timing. People are not always ready to hear the truth, even if they claim they want it. A truth spoken too early is treated as a threat. A truth spoken at the right moment becomes guidance. This is why Machiavelli emphasized patience and calculation. Insight is not about speaking everything you know. It is about knowing when speaking actually matters. Silence, restraint, and selective expression give your perception force. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. In life, you eventually learn that clarity is most powerful when it is quiet. You can see everything, but you do not need to say everything. You can understand people deeply, but you do not need to reveal that understanding. You can predict outcomes, but you do not need to announce them. What remains unspoken becomes your greatest strength. What you keep hidden becomes your advantage. Machiavelli believed that the smartest minds are often the most guarded, not because they are secretive by nature, but because wisdom teaches them that silence protects what insight creates. Seeing what others cannot is only the beginning. Insight alone changes nothing until you transform it into decisive action. Many people have moments of clarity, gut feelings, sharp observations, sudden realizations, but they fail to act on them. They doubt themselves, hesitate, or wait for approval from people who cannot see what they see. Machiavelli understood that perception becomes power only when it is paired with bold, calculated movement. The world does not reward those who merely understand. It rewards those who turn understanding into strategy. When you notice patterns others ignore, you gain a significant advantage. You detect opportunities before they become obvious. You sense danger long before it arrives. You see connections others miss, but if you do not use this advantage, it fades. Insight without action becomes frustration. You begin to feel stuck because your mind moves forward while your life stays in place. Machiavelli believed that a sharp mind must be accompanied by a sharp will. Otherwise, clarity becomes a burden rather than a weapon. The reason insight must be acted upon is simple. The world moves fast, and opportunities vanish. When you see a coming trend, a shift in someone's intentions, or an opening in a situation, you must respond before the average person recognizes what is happening. Waiting for confirmation from others is the quickest way to lose your edge. You cannot expect people who don't share your vision to understand your choices. They will call you impulsive or stubborn because they cannot see what you see. But acting early is not impulsiveness, it is strategy. By the time others realize the truth, you have already positioned yourself ahead. Action also protects you from manipulation. When you see that someone is trying to use you, deceive you, or undermine you, doing nothing gives them the power to continue. Many people recognize danger but stay silent out of fear, politeness, or doubt. Machiavelli would say that allowing a threat to grow is worse than confronting it. Your vision gives you the chance to move first, to set boundaries, withdraw, or shift your approach before harm reaches you. Insight gives you the map, and action moves you along it. Those who understand people as motives often fall into a trap. They become observers instead of participants. They watch everything unfold, analyze every detail, but remain passive. This creates a disconnect between awareness and reality. The world does not reward the observer. It rewards the one who shapes events. Machiavelli emphasized that fortune favors the bold, not the hesitant. If you know a situation is fragile, take control of it. If you know someone will betray you, distance yourself before they strike. If you know an opportunity will grow, invest in it early. Clarity becomes useless when it stays in your mind instead of guiding your steps. Acting on your vision also builds confidence. Every time you trust your perception and it proves correct, your self-belief strengthens. You begin relying on your own judgment instead of seeking validation. This independence makes you powerful because you are no longer influenced by the opinions, doubts, or fears of people who lack your understanding. You become someone who leads rather than follows, someone who moves with intention rather than reaction. Machiavelli believed that leaders are not the ones who know the most. They are the ones who act when others wait. There is also a deeper truth. Insight becomes wisdom only through experience. Knowing the right move is not enough. You must make it. Through action, you learn when your instincts are accurate, when your timing needs adjustment, and how to refine your judgment. This feedback loop sharpens your perception even further. You evolve from someone who simply sees into someone who sees and executes. And in the world of power, the one who executes always outranks the one who only understands. In the end, seeing what others cannot makes you unique, but acting on what others do not see makes you unstoppable. Only those who combine deep vision with decisive action rise above the rest. To see what others cannot is a rare gift, but to act on it is even rarer. Insight alone does not protect you, and awareness alone does not empower you. The world rewards those who combine perception with strategy, understanding with action. Remember, clarity makes you dangerous, truth makes you feared, and foresight makes you powerful, but only when you move decisively. Stand apart, trust your vision, and act with the courage and calculation that few possess. In the end, it is not the blind majority that shapes the future, but the one who sees clearly and dares to strike.